Hello and welcome everyone to What We Know. My name is Jake, and today on this episode, we have not one, but two special guests, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that I find most important in Galarian, which is the gods and why they all should be dead, not just one of them. Yes, so we have Luis. Thank you so much for coming back and being a staple across this show. But we have Drak, because Drak actually guest wrote within this book, which is very exciting. You both are so familiar to the channel. That is your intro. I don't like
yeah.
If you don't know who they are, you should watch the channel more often. They're all over the place.
They would learn that, hey, I'm Luis Loza, creative director for Pathfinder. A very important thing to learn if they go back and listen to other episodes.
But I mean, is that important?
I guess not.
Well, okay.
I'm just some guy.
Creative director of Pathfinder, Luis Loza. Why don't you take our first question, which is, other than realigning for the remaster, what are we getting out of the new Divine Mysteries book that we didn't already have in the Lost Omens Gods and Magic book?
So this is interesting. So Divine Mysteries actually started its life as its own separate book, not intending to be an update of Gods and Magic. But we decided to do the remaster, and then we realized, if we put out this book, there will be a bunch of new gods or updated gods in the remaster, but a lot of old gods won't be remastered. Let's just grab them and make a bigger book while we get a chance. But as a result, all the stuff that you were going to get in that original form of Divine Mysteries was all the stuff that you weren't getting from Gods and Magic. So that includes the framing device, which is the writings of our narrator, Yavali, who you see throughout the book. She's the little bird on the cover. And it also included the essays and stuff that she writes about how does divinity work? What happens when you kill a god? Why do people worship gods? Why do gods care about their worshipers? Stuff like that. And then it was just a bunch of character options that are brand new to the game, like new class archetypes and things like that.
Okay, nice. Drak, I'm gonna bring this next one to you. How did you get involved in the first place? And why is Luis your hero?
I'll be honest, I think I just got an email one day. I actually don't know what put me on Luis's radar, but I got an email one day being like, hey, do you want to write for this book? And I remember seeing the email being like, I've been getting a lot of spam.
Is this a phishing email? Like, this is very specific.
You want to write for Pathfinder? All I need is your credit card number, the 3 digits on the back.
Actually, weird. Could you go to the store and pick me up some gift cards? That'd be great.
It's really weird. I got this email from a Nigerian prince. I don't know, but but like I got an email. I definitely was like, "Is this real?" So I remember like going on Twitter, being like, "Okay, let's see what kind of like snooping I can do to be sure that this is a legit email." And I was like, "Oh no, it is legit. This is actually email attached to Paizo." And I was like, "100%, yeah, I would love to be part of the writers of this book."
I can tell you a bit more of that.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So 3 years ago now at Big Bad Con, I was there to do the meet and greet where people who are looking to break into the industry would talk to industry professionals such as myself. James Case was there as well. People from other companies, which is the Coast, was there, and Darrington Press and so on. And Drak was just one of the random people I met and handed me a business card. I'm like, okay, cool. I have a business card. And I talked with him, even though it was while you were wearing a very, very serious mask to protect against COVID. And it was very loud. But I remember not being able to understand, like, what is this name he's telling me, until I saw it on the card, right? It's like, oh, Drak, okay. And we talked about Doctor Who for a little bit. And I'm like, okay, hey, he is someone who wants to try to break into the industry. This is a book I'm especially designing to have a lot of tiny chunks, 1-page entries for a god or 2-page entries for a couple of gods. Let's try out some new people. And you were among the various crew that I reached out to. I'm sure you remember once you joined the the writing crew and joined into the Discord, you're like, oh, there's like 80% of these people are all from Big Bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I happened to get out there, network a little bit, and it's like, yeah, let's give them a try. And I think it worked out swimmingly. So.
We won't talk too much about Big Bad Con, and especially, being in a room at 1 a.m. with Drac opening his first Magic cards ever. We won't talk about that.
Oh my god! I don't know if I talked to you, Jake. I'm deep in Magic right now. It's a problem.
So we were there for the founding of the addiction.
Well, at least you fell into Magic, but surprisingly not into Beyblade when Beyblade was going on as well.
Drac's the one that brought all the Beyblade stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Well then,
I
you know what?
Beyblade,
You are the one that's trying to get other people into it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so going into the book, so you've got a bunch of snippets of smaller chunks that you needed from other people. Whose idea, and this might be an art direction question, but you're here, you're my connection, this is who we're going to be talking to.
I know a guy.
Whose idea was it to start adding photos of the followers? So like in Gods of Magic, you had photos of like different artwork that would represent, and I loved that. This time around, you guys decided to add pictures of what like an average follower or like a follower may look like of this. More specifically, whose idea was it to add that, and why is Asmodeus's followers so hot?
That was my idea, right? This is a thing. If you look back in our 1E days, we had a pretty big god-related book called Inner Sea Gods. Those entries are actually even bigger. The nature of this book being mashing up of two books kind of later in the process meant that we couldn't give each of the core deities 8 pages like we had in the past. It's like, okay, well, we still want to maximize the space. And one of the things featured in there was a follower of each god as well. More like an adventurer that follows the god. So you would see someone with like, swords and armor and all that stuff for each of the deities, which is great. But there are so many pictures of adventurers that I thought it'd be more interesting to not only feature, hey, here's someone who worships this god, but someone who is just kind of an everyday person. What does fashion inspired by being a follower of Desna look like? Things like that. And I had a great opportunity to order art, and the nature of ordering art is such that I generally like to have a reference of here's the kind of outfit they might be wearing or the hairstyle they might have. And when you give artists a model wearing a particular outfit or a model with a very good looking hair, they tend to also be like, well, I guess they want a hot person, and that's what ends up happening with a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, I joke about the Asmodeus follower being hot because, well, I mean, but besides that, like, they're all pretty like the direction that they went, other than the one that we're going to talk about next. They're all pretty like conventionally attractive like people, which is really fun because it's I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about adventurers or warriors. You usually get that grizzled, rustled look. So having someone that's like in a suit, like in just a nice dress like that's a nice departure from what we had previously been seeing.
Truly innovating and finding new and exciting ways to make people hot in TTR.
So speaking of things that are hot, we're gonna go into Lamashtu, which Drac, you got to guest write on this and got to write a lot for Lamashtu. How much freedom did you actually have? Because Lamashtu is a pretty big staple within Pathfinder. So did you have a lot of freedom? Were you able to add your own flair to Lamashtu, or was it just kind of regurgitating what information you had and putting it into a new format?
It was definitely I would say a combination of both. I definitely had freedom to add and honestly subtract, not just to Lamashtu but also the giant gods that I wrote. I was definitely nervous about it, but I remember reaching out to Luis about being like, hey, can I add? Or I think there was one for the giant gods that was kind of like, oh, this is from first edition. This is not so great. Now that we've kind of taken steps forward as a society, can I change this? And Luis was like, yeah, go ahead, change it. Like, we wouldn't want to update this lore. So there was a lot of freedom. I didn't feel the need to change much for Lameshi specifically. Did add some stuff, but I didn't need to like directly fully change anything. And at least from what I understood, the whole point of this was to basically essentially transfer what's already been written to dialect and a kind of in-world purpose, with it being like an essay written by Yuvali for second edition, the remastered version of second edition. So there wasn't much need to, but I did feel free enough that if I felt like I needed to, I could pretty easily, which is honestly great.
Now, when you were finally able to tell us that you wrote for the book, because you were like, Jake, I want to tell you this thing so badly, but I can't talk about it. And I was like, okay, I don't know. All right. When you were finally able to talk to us about it, I got very excited because you had mentioned Lamashtu, which, and I found out right before this that Luis doesn't know the story behind this, because when you told me about it, I was like, oh my God, did you get to pick Lamashtu, or was it random? Like, cause like if it was random, that's just fate. Like,
if it was random, that'd be wild. But no, I got how the process worked. It's been a couple of years now. It's been like a year or so now. So correct me if I'm wrong, Luis, but we got like a list of gods. And we just kind of like submitted like 3 or 4 that we'd wanted to write for, and then they would assign us based on that who we'd write for. And when the moment I saw Lamashtu, I was like, I need to write for Lamashtu. So Lamashtu was one of the ones I submitted. And I guess for Luis's and anyone else who doesn't know, my first time playing Pathfinder was a game run by Jake, and I played
I'm actually wearing the Court of Corvid's shirt, but
yeah, it was the second. It was like the other side of a hero campaign. We played a villain campaign called Parliament of Owls to the Court of Corvid, which was the hero campaign, and I played a villain, Dhampir sorcerer who worshipped Lamashtu. Their whole thing was they worship Lamashtu. Their mother, who was a foot vampire, prayed to Lamashtu for kids. And it's a matriarchy setting, so she was like the queen of the country, and she was prayed to Lamashtu for a child, and my very much not a woman character was born. So there's a lot of butting with my character and my character's mother. So my character turned to Lamashtu as kind of like I guess a replacement mother, sort of. So yeah, when I saw that Lamashtu was up for grabs, I was like, it would be so perfect if I get to write for the first god my first Pathfinder character worshipped, and it worked out. I got to write for Lamashtu.
Yeah, that's what you were saying earlier about the whole assigning thing. At least when I do assignments, right? What I ask is people to give me like, okay, pick up to like 10 things you want to write, and then give them to me in like the order you're most excited about, right? And ideally I can give everyone their number one pick at least, right? And the reason I do that is because I've learned over the years, people who are excited about the given subject matter end up more into it, and thus writing better quality stuff. So, hey, wouldn't you know it, you really like Lamashtu because of this connection you had with the game, and then it comes through on the page with your great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was I was so excited, and I was very excited to read through it and read what you had wrote. And again, you all need to check the book out. Even though this isn't like a sponsored ad, we're talking about this book. Go get it. Okay, so what are some of the things that you felt you needed to get into Divine Mysteries? Like, when you were writing this, or at least sketching it out, Luis, what were some of the things that you were just like, I have to get this in here?
There were a couple of big mechanical things I wanted. One was the Battle Harbinger class archetype for the cleric. People have been saying, oh, well, I'd love to have a more combat-focused cleric. I can play a war priest. And that's cool, but I want like even more. So I'm like, okay, well, I want to give you that in a balanced and exciting sense. So I made sure to include that, and it gave an opportunity for us to play with the class archetype mechanics, which hadn't seen too much use at the time that I was outlining it. Now we have a lot of class archetypes with War of Immortals and everything. And the other thing I wanted to include were covenants. In Gods and Magic, we introduced mechanically a pantheon. Hey, you can worship this grouping of gods and get benefits based on this unique grouping. But because of the nature of those, there wasn't any way to represent, oh, I'm worshiping like 100 different nature spirits, and then those nature spirits collectively are like a god to me and I gain power. So I added covenants in this to be able to represent that without needing to individually give you 100 nature spirits that then go into the pantheon. This affords us a lot more freedom with representing ways to receive divine power. There's some really interesting covenants in there. One of them, the esoteric order of the Palatine Eye, is also a covenant, and it just says, hey, where's its power source? It just says mysterious sources, and we can get away with that now because of the extra space that we carved out mechanically. And then the rest of it was just, I don't know, let's just give you as many gods as possible. I try to cram as much as I could into the book.
Was there anything that didn't quite make it through the cramming, like so many clothes that you try to get into a suitcase and you just can't get that last shirt? I'm not necessarily asking you to give us spoilers for future publications or anything, though if you want to offer that, that's fine.
There is definitely stuff that was outlined and written and turned into us, went through the whole process, and then in the last minutes I ended up cutting to make more space for other stuff. I won't even hint at what it might be, other than the fact that it was, more player options out there for you that are kind of ready to go and are just waiting for something in the not too distant future to come back. So I think I already have a spot where they're going to be showing up again. It's just a matter of time to progress far enough for us to get that thing in the future out for you to finally see it.
Can you actually talk a little bit about that kind of decision making? Like, what are usually it's due to like limitations, right? Like limitations that are put on you. Like, is it a time constraint? Is it a page constraint? Like, what goes into making those kind of decisions of what gets cut?
Generally, it's page constraints. We try to do our best to outline and plan exactly how much each given section fills up. You're looking at Lamashtu, for example. She was assigned 4 pages of space. When the time came to put all the text on the page, it wasn't enough to fill 4 pages. We added more content in what we call the copy fit phase, and some of that was just, let's take an existing thing and paste that in there. Some of it is just expanding on lore. Some of it is sometimes just being like, instead of saying she's worshipped by monsters, she's worshipped by very scary monsters, to add a couple of words to fill stuff out here and there. So there are times when I was realizing that, like, this is actually so much shorter, we can actually get 2 pages back to fill in something else. And then there were some other cases where it's like, oh my gosh, this was way too long for this. Hey, I got those extra 2 pages. And then also realizing, oops, I forgot to include this or that or whatever. And there was a lot of, like, because of so many plates being spun at the time of the remaster, there was a lot of stuff that ended up falling through the cracks, and I didn't realize it until that later stage. And it's like, okay, I got to scramble and ask for some space back. And some of it is like, there's that big chart at the end of the book. If we can get 2 more pages back for that, I can fit more gods in there. So there was just a lot of unforeseen moving pieces around or removing pieces, adding pieces in that normally doesn't happen with our books, but because of the whole remaster thing, it made it more susceptible to that.
Would you say this book is slightly larger because of that, or like because there is a lot of information in here, but there's also a lot of the remaster aspect of it. Like, is it a bigger book because of that?
Yeah, it is. When we were deciding, let's take Divine Mysteries and mix it with Gods and Magic, how many pages is that? Okay, well, technically 128 pages, another 128 pages. This should be a 256 page book, right? Like, yeah, but if we want to like make this a real worthwhile thing, people say, well, I already have half this book. Why would I read the Lamashtu entry again? I could just read it from Gods and Magic. So, well, let's double that size of that Lamashtu entry so you're getting more bang for your buck. Okay, well, we can't just immediately say the 256 pages will fit that, because it can't. Let's add more pages. We landed on 320, and even at the last minute, I'm like, can I get this any bigger? We ended up with 328 pages. And like, I don't think our website even lists the correct page because of how late in the process that update was. So Yeah, Remastered did make a lot of changes to this book, and it was felt throughout and constantly was happening. It was kind of a miracle that things worked out the way they did.
Or perhaps excellent creative management and direction.
Yes, there was a lot of help, an enormous help from Sonia Morris, who's the head of our art department. Bless her heart for every single thing I kept bugging her about.
So, Drak, there's a whole lot of material to get into just to be able to write for this kind of a work. We've heard of one of the ways that you prepared, namely by pre-worshipping Lamashtu in Parliament of Owls. Very prescient, by the way. But what else did you do to prepare for writing on this book?
There was a lot of reading previous Pathfinder lore. There was a lot of Googling to be like, okay, what books is Lamashtu or Giant Gods mentioned in? And then all of us as writers were able to like reach out to Luis and be like, hey, we need this, we need access to this book so we can like read up on this lore. And we were just given access to those books. So it was a lot of me sitting like in my computer scrolling through PDFs, like Control F and be like Lamashtu, and then searching for where Lamashtu is mentioned and reading any entries about that. Same with all of the Giant Gods. Yeah, just a lot of navigating Control F, honestly, on PDFs of different books from within Pathfinder Second Edition and Pathfinder First, because a lot of the lore spans across all of them, especially with the Giant Gods. I think a lot of them were in specifically one First Edition.
Yeah.
So I had to do a lot of reading and looking back on those, and I think I fell in love with Pathfinder more as I wrote for it, because like, oh cool, the world feels so much bigger, because I very rarely, with most games I play, I very rarely play in like the actual world. I'm often playing in a homebrew setting, using the rules, maybe some of the gods itself, but like never the actual world itself. It's getting to learn about Galorian and the multiverse, which I learned was a thing in Pathfinder, was very, very fun. Definitely made me fall in love with Pathfinder a lot more.
Any particularly fun lore facts or tidbits that you stumbled over that you particularly enjoyed in that whole research process?
Yes. I don't know if it's still canon for Second Edition, but Russian is a language you can learn, I think, in First Edition, because God, what's the name of the witch who's in a hut with
Baba Yaga?
Chicken legs. Baba Yaga.
Mm-hmm.
Baba Yaga traversed worlds and went to Galorian at one point, and brought the language with her, which I was like, that's wild. That's so weird. I love that. So I think that's definitely one of my favorite bits of like tidbits I learned through my learning of Pathfinder.
It's not only canon, it maintains canon. One of Baba Yaga's granddaughters, very far down the line, is Queen Anastasia, literally from real world Russia, who has now been transplanted to Galarian and is now the ruler of the nation of Erison. So she brought with her not only Russian but also some of her guards and stuff, and those guards have rifles and things like that. So there's a whole lot of, there's like a little pocket of real world Earth technology and culture now out in Galarian as well.
Nice. Drek, when you were going over the giants and giants gods and stuff like that, and you were going through it, was there one that you attached more to than others? And was there any of them that you had an issue with? Like one that you were just like, oh, I agreed to this, but I don't want to.
My favorite was probably, I realized I never said this name out loud, so I don't know if I'm saying it properly. Agaron, the Sea Dream. They're the kind of giant god of like the storm giants in the sea, specifically, mostly about voyages, people taking like long voyages on the sea. I really enjoyed that because it wasn't really like pushed on too much in the previous ones, but like as I was reading through the entries I had seen in the previous mentions of him, he felt like a hopeless romantic, and I just like the idea of like this huge burly giant god being like, I'm a wife guy. Like I love my wife. I just absolutely love that. His whole thing is like, I I think I added this. I don't know. I fully can't remember if this was in first edition or if I added this, but the way he kind of blesses people who worship him, usually voyagers, is gifting voyagers with dreams of their loved ones as they because they left them behind on the land. I just loved that kind of hopeless romantic aspect of a storm giant being like, I love my wife and I bet you do too. Here's my blessing. You get to see your wife in your dreams. Like I love that.
That's cool.
The one I struggled with the most was probably Hugger Car. It was the example I was talking about where I was like, this is kind of weird, this kind of problematic if we keep this exact same thing. And it was more, the struggle was one, because this was my first thing writing for Pathfinder and Paizo. So I will be honest, I was kind of nervous to be like, hey, Luis, can I not write this? Can I write something else for this? So it's like an aspect of me being nervous to reach out. That was kind of was difficult. When I did, Luis was like, yes, go, you have full reign to like change things up. So like that lifted that kind of pressure. I think what was actually hard about it was keeping the same kind of energy of like, this is a evil kind of like dubious god, and I want to keep that energy of it without having to keep this problematic lore that they originally had. So I think that was the hardest part, being like, how can I keep the kind of things they were trying to touch, kind of like the touchstones of this, or changing everything else that they were using to convey that. I think I managed to do it. It stayed the same when it was published in the books. I assumed I kind of accomplished that pretty well, but I definitely had the hardest of the gods for me, I think.
You just described the problem that every GM and world builder has of like, how do I make this person evil, but not go to the default of they're racist? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those were our pre-planned questions, but we have some user submitted questions, and if you would like to submit questions for our future shows, you can submit them on our Discord, where we have a channel dedicated for What We Know, where we talk about the episodes that we have here, talk about future episodes, and where you'd be able to submit questions. So if you haven't already, you should probably join the Discord. Here's our first question from Jason Podfinder Chronicles. What was the biggest surprise to either of them that came up during drafting? Someone contributed writer's purpose that really grabbed their attention and hadn't considered themselves.
I can get one of these. So I have so many authors working for me, and they all have brilliant ideas, and sometimes they introduce just like, oh, this is kind of out of nowhere, but I think this is a great thing. Carlos Cisco wrote the Abadar entry and was the one that proposed, hey, what if Abadar had a brother no one knew about, and his brother was basically the opposite? He's all about stealing and getting your way and all that other stuff. Like, that's interesting. And he was using that as an explanation as to why Abadar kind of allows people to take advantage of loopholes and stuff with contracts, and isn't like outright an evil guy, but isn't outright a good guy as well. And it's like, why does Abadar let these things happen if, you know, it can like twist contracts in ways? It's like, well, it's partly because of who his brother used to be. And it's like, I kind of want to honor the spirit of what my brother used to be, which was just like helped really kind of flesh him out in a way that makes him make a lot more sense to, I think, to a lot of readers. I've seen so many people being like, oh, now that we know about this, Abadar makes so much sense, it's great. So a thing that I didn't even ask for, I'm just like, write Abadar. He's like, while I'm writing, I want to add this thing. Great, let's go with it. That sounds good.
Nice. The next one is from Eridan, God of Humanity. When is the Eridan Deluxe box coming out? They're asking for a friend.
I don't know if we're gonna have one of those anytime soon. Like any response from the fan base is just like, hey, do you guys love Eridan? Just like, I get hit with dead air, so like I don't think people are really looking for it, but if enough people start bugging us, maybe we'll consider it.
Okay, all right.
You hear it, commenters. Get into the comments. Get the good word out. We also have a question from Ash Lava. if you could replace a god, keeping their domain and powers, which one and why? Now, it is not entirely clear to me whether this is replacing the current deity with a different fictional being, or if like you just want to take their place, replace a god. Which one you taking over for?
It feels like it's the latter to me. Like, hey, if you could be any of these deities.
So they asked two questions that were kind of connected. So it might make more sense if I say if we read the other one, which is if you could attack and dethrone a single god, which one and why? So I'm gonna say it's you replacing them.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm trying to decide if I. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
I think just because. Not just because I wrote for them, but I generally love their backstory of how they became a god. I think Lamashtu, they went from like being, I believe, a fiend to a god, and I kind of like that, and I kind of want to one up that and go from a mortal to a god and take their place and maybe go a bit further than they could. So I think Lamashtu. I wouldn't go as far as like becoming a pregnant half wolf, half like thing, but their domain is pretty cool, and I happily take that over.
I think one that I really resonate with, and knowing this god, they might even be like, "Oh, do you want to take my place? That's fine. You don't have to fight. I'll just let you have it." Is the newer god, Izuyaku, who is our god of balance, strength, health, and hot springs. I'm really into the idea of just like, oh, I can be a god that encourages people to help themselves, help each other out. There's like a lot of underlying, feelings of like getting to therapy with this god and self-care in a way that I'm like, yeah, that's good. You should do that. And also it sounds like when it comes time to like do your deific duties and stuff, it's pretty chill. All you're like gonna do is like, oh, I bless this hot spring. Cool. There's no asking anyone to go to war for you or go slay demons or anything like that. It's just like be nice to yourself and be nice to others, and remember that you have strength inside yourself, but it's also strong to reach out for help.
I feel like this is reasoning of why Gorham died. Why Luis killed Gorham. I feel like
I was tired of all the fighting.
Can I say this is going to be an answer for the first question from my because I have that just reminded me of a thing. A surprise for the writers was we didn't know he was going to die either. We didn't get told. And I think some even wrote for Gorham and to hide the fact that they were going to die.
So yes, I didn't tell anyone on the assignment. In fact, only one person that was one of the authors ended up getting to learn about this. She's Stephanie Lundeen, who wrote the section on Erasni, who we were kind of putting up into that core 20 deity slot in place of Gorham. It's like, okay, you need to know that he died because the nature of how she gets elevated into this status, meta status, is important to that. But beyond that, no, I didn't tell anyone. When the remaster happened, we were already mostly done with the writing window for Divine Mysteries, and then it's like, okay, actually, we're going to do a second writing window to do the expansion on this book, and that included all the core deities. And if you look through the list, it had all the deities, including Gorham, but Gorham was already assigned to someone, so no one else could pick Gorham. Gorham was assigned to myself. So it's like, I'm going to be writing Gorham. People are like, okay, sure. I guess I'll take Lamashtu or one of these other gods. But I knew that I was assigning nothing to myself. I'm not actually there's nothing to write here. Maybe I should have assigned something. I could have gotten paid. I could have gotten paid for writing nothing. No, I can't do that. But I had it set as, I didn't want to be like, oh, look, here's all the core deities. Don't question why Gorham isn't on this list, right? If anything, question why we're going from 20 to 21. That's kind of a weird number to go to. But I try to keep that a secret for as long as possible. And I think other than Stephanie, you all found out when the public did. So
yeah.
That's awesome. I bet you that Discord was like, what the hell? Glad no one added Gorham to their storylines, of the gods. So this one came in anonymously, but I felt like it was important to still
Sure.
bring it in. The word blood in one form or another is used 136 times in this book, yet no blood magic. What gives?
Hey, you can only cram so much into this book, but if you're looking for some blood magic, I think you can stay tuned till April. The Shades of Blood adventure path starts off then with an adventure by myself, actually. And you might see some cool blood options in the back matter of that book that relate to blood magic. So if you can wait a few more months, I think you'll have your bloodthirst sated.
I mean, I've
Anonymous question.
I mean, this person has been waiting, not me, definitely not me, has been waiting for blood magic for over a year and a half. So, yeah. No, I look forward to. I mean, they are definitely looking forward to checking this out. So this isn't a written question, but it kind of popped in my head just now, but after the success, this book, I don't know, I don't have numbers, but I have been seeing people talk about it, and it's a cool book, and I really enjoyed it. With the success of this, are you planning on doing more aspects of writing where you have a bunch of people coming in? And because Drac is a bro, are you ever going to bring Drac back?
Oh my god, on camera.
Will we be assigning more books that use authors in the future? Yes, absolutely.
I just mean like guest, like, you know what I mean? Like not like you, because you have a team and you have a core group.
Well, no, all our books are written outside a house for the most part. Save for a couple of things. Classes are designed internally because we need to be doing those. But for the most part, any book that we assign, we have freelance writers do it, and sometimes our internal staff are the ones that are writing it, right? I wrote for Divine Mysteries, but technically I did so as a freelance writer. I did that off the clock. My job is to be creative director, not to be writing Divine Mysteries. So I got the work assigned to myself that I had to do when I wasn't doing my Paizo work, and I was doing so as a freelancer capacity. But all our books are freelance written. So there are always opportunities in the future. And of course, I'd love to have Drac back. I'm sure it wouldn't be too long before Drac hears from me when I think there's a good opportunity for jumping in on something like that.
Look, Drac, I got your back, man. I'm just saying, I'm never going to not fight for my friends, all right?
Thank you.
That's where the
Now,
inner
without
forum
sharing-
comes from me, all right?
Now, without sharing any particulars, are you planning on committing trolls like that with Gorm? Again, you don't have to say what it is.
Ooh.
But are you going to do it? Is it already in your pipeline? Do you have plans?
I have gained a reputation as someone who trolls people among the community, right? Depending on which, there are a variety of Discord servers where people talk about Pathfinder, and I'm on most of them, so I know what you're saying. And one of them I've seen, they've created like a sticker that you can like throw into the chat at any time that has my Discord avatar, and it says "Don't believe his lies," just because it's become so common. When I technically never lie, right? I'm never being dishonest. Am I obfuscating things? Oh, absolutely. Am I wording things in particular ways that later, months or years down the line, you're like, oh, that's what he meant by that tricky jerk, right? Yes, I'm doing a lot of that, but I'm never lying. Oops, sorry, just in my never lying. And there are always things that I need to keep secret because I get to see Pathfinder's future, 3-4 years down the line, and I know what we're planning for, what things are coming potentially down the pipeline or are for sure coming down the pipeline. So yeah, there are still big events in the future that we'd love to have. There are seeds that have been planted in some places. Some of them were planted at the start of the edition. Some of them were planted later as we solidified a few things. So yeah, there's always things that we are doing and having to keep secret from freelancers until the time comes that they need to know, right? Like when the time came that like, hey, we are writing stuff related to events after Gorham's death, we needed to tell our freelancers like, hey, this has happened. I've already assigned and had the writing done for a book that's just about done actually, that has yet to be announced, but it takes place after the God's Reign event and the War of Immortals, kickoff thing. When we were assigning that, I'm like, okay, guys, here's what you need to know, because this is how it affects the setting and what you need to account for in the future. So there will always be fun stuff, and I look forward to people finding the clues and being able to piece together retroactively, like, oh, they were talking about this and that when that time comes.
So possible Hot Springs God, but confirmed Trickster God.
Exactly what I
Yes.
was thinking. Like, that's what Trickster God would say. Like, I never lie. I obfuscate the truth.
Since you have projections for the next few years,
Mhm.
how far, looking as like a retrospective of that, how far over the remaster like hump do you feel like you are? Like, do you feel like, we're about to go into 2025, right? How much of that do you feel is going to be still not, I don't want to say rehashing, that's not the right word, but kind of remastering the things that you have already published?
Yeah, I think we're past the hump, right? The last big product that was affected by the remaster and had to change gears mid-stream was NPC Core, a book that is coming out in a few months. We had to update all the stats and stuff as a result, but it's also a book that we had to decide, oh, what are we going to do with this book with the remaster and all that stuff. All of our adventures are up to date in terms of under remastered status. Yeah, that was the last book that was kind of affected, and that's been shipped off to print and is ready to go. So right around end of summer is when it's like, okay, the last bits of that ripple effect are being felt. Now we can look to the future and not feel like, oh, we just have to get everything up to date or up to speed with the remaster. We can do new stuff, and we will still be updating things as we go here and there. We when we find opportunities, if we take a monster from Bestiary 3, it's like, oh yeah, that works perfect. Let's get you the remastered stats in the adventure so we can use it in the future. We'll do that as it comes, but that's a case by case basis. I don't think you can expect us to just be doing every year. It's like, oh, now we're gonna do Dark Archive remaster, and now we're gonna do Book of the Dead remaster. Some of those might happen, but I would think it's safer to assume that we'll take the pieces as we need them in the future. And then if we have a chance, then we see that, like, oh, actually remastering this entire book in one go is maybe the best way to go, we'll do that, but it won't be in a way that is cramming a bunch of extra books onto the schedule like it was with the player core and GM core updates.
Is that like a massive weight off of your shoulders?
Yeah, we added 4 books to the schedule that was already fully locked in, right? So it was a lot of extra work, and it couldn't have been possible without so much extra work for so many people. James Case and Logan Bonner in particular did spearhead that quite a bit in a way that just it ended up as good as it did because of their help. But of course, everyone pulled not just their weight, but like above and beyond their weight in terms of making sure this all happened.
I feel like I've got like a million more questions for you, Luis, because like I've got like a bunch of like in the weeds question, which I doubt anyone else is interested in. But like I've been working a lot with manufacturers and companies that are producing not content, but producing product. And you were just talking about having a locked in schedule for what you're releasing, and having to add 4 additional ones is exorbitantly difficult for a company to do. So like that was huge. Looking forward, looking into 2025, how much are you projecting to release, and how realistic is that? Because like, for example, I'm working with a company that's literally just told me last week that they're scheduled to release a new product once a week, and I told them that they were absolutely insane. And these are physical products.
Wow. Well, the schedule before the remaster shakeup was 3 rule books a year, 3 Lost Omen books a year, and then an adventure path volume each month, with the occasional bigger adventure, like hardcover adventure, thrown in. So I think we're at a point where that rhythm is back in play, and we're going to try to maintain that. Obviously, if we see chances to improve on that or need to scale back as necessary, we'll do that. But if what you were used to is every month you're getting an adventure, and every other month or so you're getting a hardcover book, either a rule book or a Lost Omens book, you're back to that. You don't have to add 4 extra books to your budget, things like that. If you do, thank you. Please buy more books. But the regular schedule is kind of back in play.
That's great. So I think this is a good place to kind of, we're rolling out. This is a good thing. Is there anything either of you would like to promote or talk about? I feel like I've been talking to Luis a ton. So Drac, is there anything you want to talk about? In mind that this will be coming out December 13th, Friday the 13th.
Ooh.
Okay. I don't think I have anything really to plug. I write stuff. I've written of course for Pathfinder, but also written for other TTRPGs. Written for with Cubicle 7, some other indie books. If you want to check out the stuff I've written, you can check that out. I guess on my website, Drakoniques.card, CARRD. Or you can just follow me on socials at Drakoniques, it's DRAKONIQUES. I'm often here as well on this very channel, playing some TTRPG actual plays, but I'm also on other channels playing TTRPG actual plays. So yeah, just follow me on socials or check out my website, and you can figure out where I am at any given moment.
Luis, you got the floor.
Buy Divine Mysteries. This was a book that took a long time to get out, just because of the nature of how things played out. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I met Drac at Big Bad Con 3 years ago, and within a month or two is when I first sent out the hey, would you like to write for this book? We have this. So that writing process began for a long time, and actually you and the rest of the team had to sit on, we know this book exists, but it hasn't been announced for a very, very long time. And then it was announced, and it was still announced way early from what we normally do. So you had to sit for a long time before anyone ever saw it. So it was a labor of love, and it was a long time coming, but I want people to check this book out and really enjoy it. Otherwise, you can check out luisloza.com for my links and anywhere I'm doing stuff.
Thank you so much for actually getting Divine Mysteries over the line and out into the world. And thank you both so much for joining us. And if you enjoyed today's episode, give us a like and subscribe, and let us know which gods you would attack and or dethrone in the comments below. You can also catch us on twitch.tv/althaven_, where we stream RPG content. Join the conversation on our Althaven Discord. If you want to support us, you can do so on coffee.com/althaven. But above all, check out these delightful people /trickster gods and check out Divine Mysteries. But until next time, keep it weird. International.